empiricism, which we talked about Aristotle and his empiricism, but empiricism is the claim that truth comes through experience and observation through the senses. Now, there's a biblical aspect of empiricism where we do, learn about the world through, we learn about God's world and God's terms, and we observe things, and we pick up on patterns and stuff like that. Because the biblical worldview is true, we can do that. We can observe those patterns. But there's a problem with saying that all knowledge comes through observation. And the big internal problem is the claim of empiricism, the proposition of empiricism, is not something that can be observed. Knowledge itself is not something that can be observed. And so it doesn't meet its own standard. That if it's true, you could never know it. And if it's false, you should reject it. So it's a self-defeating system. But empiricists, they say, okay, we just observe how the world is, and then from there we try to make ethical claims that require something of someone, that require you to do this because it is right, or stop you from doing this because it is wrong. Which, I'm going to point out the problems with this, but just think how that would work. All of us going out into the world, and what we've observed through our experience is going to become the standard by which we judge things as right or wrong. Now, we may pick up on some things and figure some things out that may coincide with some truth, but almost accidentally, right? We may figure some things out and be like, okay, I don't like people doing that to me, but I do like when I do that stuff to other people. Or, you can figure some things out, but it doesn't mean that we would come to the same standard, right? And then if we get enough people to agree with us, we compete until one side beats the other and has their standard kind of be the one that's in charge. But ethics can't really be determined by empiricism. And here's why, that empiricism has the problem of, and here's a blank here, normativity. And what that means is there are things that are empirical, what is, to observe. So it's like you don't say when you're observing a rock under a microscope, you determine what is, you observe. But you don't say this rock should be this or that. That's a normative question. Normative has to do with what should or ought to happen. And an empirical statement is trying to make a factual claim about what is. But a normative statement is trying to tell you what you should or should not do, what ought or ought not to be. And so some people say, okay, even Aristotle tried this. Well, let's try to get to ethics from empiricism. But the problem is, I think you have this little chart there, that fact does not equal value. Just because you observe a fact in nature doesn't tell you anything about should or ought. It just tells you, here's what it is. Empirical does not equal normative. And you can't go from what is to what ought or should be. It's a logical jump there to do that.